Hey guys, I'd like to welcome you back to the Kortex Media Podcast, where we navigate the fast-paced world of automotive and more. Today, I have a special guest, Scott LaPlante. Scott is a dedicated second-generation owner of Sherwood Auto Repair, a business his family led since 1992. With a strong educational background in automotive technology from Portland Community College, Scott is passionate about providing top-quality automotive service with honesty and integrity. He focuses on building enduring relationships with customers and fostering a community-minded atmosphere within his shop. Recognized for his commitment to customer service, Scott continues to set high standards in the automotive repair industry. It's great to have you on, Scott.
Thanks, Corson. It's great to be here.
No worries. So we're going to start things off, and if you don't mind just talking a little bit about your background. You've been in the automotive industry for quite some time. I know we chatted earlier about it, but can you give the viewers a quick in-depth look on your life before being in the automotive industry?
Sure thing. One edit, the Sherwood Auto Repair started in 1986 by my dad, which that's fine, no problem. And my dad has had an automotive service business my whole life. He had an Exxon gas station when I was born, and then a small garage in northern Maine, and then we moved to Oregon in the early 80s, and then shortly after that established Sherwood Auto Repair. And I've been active since 1992 in the business as a day-to-day role.
Yeah.
Pardon me. And so that's the kind of cliff notes. I always knew that I wanted to be in the industry. There was really I never had thoughts of doing anything else. I had a couple other jobs that were related. I worked for a race engine builder when I was in college for a term.
Oh, sweet.
And I worked at a go-kart track as a mechanic. But that was just a few hours a week and for fun more than anything. Yeah. And I still worked at the shop during that time as well. So I succeeded the business from my dad 100% in 2017. I think at the end of the year he retired, and for the years between the early 90s and then we worked together.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear that. Can you speak a little bit more about the beginning of Sherwood Auto Repair, like your dad, kind of more of your father's inspiration behind it and how it's evolved over the years?
Sure thing. My dad started in the industry as he wanted to be a mechanic and went to school, worked for a couple small dealerships in northern Maine, and then again started his own businesses after that. And kind of the core principles related to how we carry that forward now have always been part of the DNA of the business of LaPlante's garage in Maine, and then Sherwood Auto Repair here. And that's, I think, the basis of how we have experienced success. And it's not been without its challenges, certainly. And for a long time, it was, really just through grit and determination, not with a good plan. And so after my dad retired, I had to kind of figure it out. And it was always in the back of my mind that they talk about when generational businesses succeed from the first generation to the second, and especially onto the third, that a high percentage of them fail. And so it, again, going back to that grit and determination, I was determined for it to be successful, and I figured that would look a lot different than what I had known up to that point. And so I went to work learning how to run the business as a business, and it's been its own whole adventure, and I've really enjoyed it a lot.
Definitely. What are some of the biggest things you've learned from being a technician, moving on to the entrepreneur and CEO of the company?
Well, you can choose to look at the business just like repairing a car, and
Yeah.
there's diagnostic data, and that now, like on a scan tool, would be considered a PID, parameter identification, and we refer to it as a KPI at the in the administrative or the front of the house, and
Yeah.
um, in that regard, it's a mindset shift, and you can, it's just about how much access you have to the data and what you do with it. And it's the same way if you're diagnosing a car. So you can really turn the knobs and diagnose the business in a very similar way. And it's really about giving yourself permission to be able to do it. It's almost like if somebody came with a complicated drivability problem that had been at another shop in the dealership and they couldn't figure it out, you have to create some space for yourself to be able to gain enough information to do them any good. And so, you start with maybe a lot more time than what you would for just, hey, my check engine light's on. And so, maybe you start with an hour and a half or 2 hours. And so if you give yourself permission, then the information seems to come with much greater ease. And so, some of the things that I've incorporated in my journey have given me the opportunity to have permission. And so, like working with a coach, working with a coaching consulting company with the Institute for Automotive Business Excellence, that whole thing, and the programs that they have for my manager and my advisors, plus the shop owner group, it's really powerful stuff. And so, after we were engaged with them, things really started to gain momentum, and it all comes down to having permission or allowing yourself the permission, and then momentum. And you have accountability to implement things, and really the hardest thing always is to implement the things that you learn. If you go to a seminar or something like that, you could have volumes of notes, and it's best to try to just chunk it down to 2 or 3 things that are real important, and then put them to work, and then check your list and do another 2 or 3 things, right? And so it's taught me to do that, and we've had a lot of success in being able to articulate that and get things, in play.
That's awesome. I love to hear that. Can you share a little bit more about the coaching for people or shop owners maybe needing some help with their journey as an entrepreneur?
Sure. The one thing that I would say, I like this quote, and it's a Japanese quote. They say, the best time to plant a tree is 25 years ago, and the second best time is now. And so if I could, I have no regrets, because I believe my journey, the whole thing, has, it gives me a high level of appreciation for the wins, for sure, and makes the challenges easier, because I've had tremendous challenges. But with that being said, the one thing I would change would be to have this level of coaching and consulting, a long time ago, to where the expectation was set, there was accountability, and the tools to support the changes that you can see when you start to look at the dashboard and see the where the numbers are off, basically, right? So it's a real miracle that any of these businesses survive. It's based on just what's in the bank balance, right? There's so much going on that, especially if you're a technician service advisor, like my dad did for many years, you're the guy. And
Yeah.
so you pay the bills and sell the work and do the work, or in opposite order, right?
Yeah.
Then it's pretty remarkable that any of them really survived beyond 2 or 3 years because
Mm-hmm.
the that's where the grit and perseverance comes in. Just
Definitely.
just hammering it out. I used to say that we worked half days. We worked from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and
Yeah.
and that's how we got it done. So yeah, there are lots of good coaching outfits out there. I picked the Institute because I had several of Cecil Bullard's in-person classes at conferences and things like that, and his philosophy and their philosophy as an organization aligned really well with mine, and so I knew that would be a step up so that we didn't have to adjust for some philosophical difference before we could start to improve the business.
Oh, that makes
And
sense.
that was really the basis of the reason for that, choosing to
Yeah.
go with them. And I'm super glad I did because all the elements involved are really support each other. And so I'm a big fan, and it definitely works. I honestly, when I joined it, I thought that it would be a year or 2 year project, and
Yeah.
really the nature of the owners group that I'm in is designed really to be in it, throughout, like forever. And it
For
certainly pays for itself. I mean, we have very strong net profit numbers in our group. They say that it's like the top 1% of the industry. So
and that's
pretty proud of
all
that.
automotive repair shops is in your group there,
That's right.
and that
Yeah,
just that makes it easier for you as a group to grow together. Like, say someone's doing something that's working really well, and you're doing something that maybe needs some help. You can get different insights, and get different opinions from other shop owners, so you guys can grow as a
exactly.
community.
Yeah,
I
mean
think that's great.
that's exactly it. Benchmarks, marketing, and follow up customer retention stuff. Certainly.
Definitely, and especially with the new world now, because before when you were a shop owner, there's no such thing as advertising or marketing. It was
Right.
you have your customer come in, they bring their car, you do the work, you get paid. Where now you kind of need to show your brand, you need to show your model, and you need to show them why they should come to you and support you as a service. So I think that's what the coaching helped a lot, would have helped a lot as well, is to show you they need to be more of a business owner rather than a technician.
That's it, exactly. Part of what we did during that same time frame, maybe a little ahead of really engaging into the institute programs, was I belonged to a BNI chapter, Business Networking International, and so really it's everywhere. I'm sure there's local chapters near you, and it's I've been a member now 10 years, and my impression is that it gives you, like, every week, all week, you're thinking about your business, and you think about who's a good customer for your business, which helps craft your message, and it manipulates, or not manipulates, but that's not maybe the best word, but massage
That'll be
the way that you attract and retain people, customers. So
Definitely.
there was a brand guy in my BNI chapter, and honestly, for 6 months, I thought that it was about, like, the imaging, like your logo, right? I figured that was it, and then I had a one-to-one with him, and he explained, it's this whole world of your story, basically. And he recommended the Purple Cow concept by Seth Godin, and he's a marketing guy. He's a brand guy, and I read the book, and it was, being the Purple Cow was like about standing out, and everyone, there's 2,500, 3,000 auto repair shops in the United States and that are similar to mine. So why are we different, right? And in my demographic, in my direct demographic, there's like 30 shops in the 5 mile circle. And why would people choose to come to work for us or come to work with us? So I thought, I put a lot of thought into that and work with him. And we developed a brand composite. We have very specific information about our colors and the way that it's used. We have an avatar for who our customer is. And it's super powerful because it's very easy to orient everything to that. And part of like the B&I model talks about when you give your presentation, think about attracting or connecting with your best top 10 customers or top 10%. And so if you focus on that end of the spectrum, it brings the whole rest of your customer base up to that level. And it's a remarkable thing. I mean, that's a pretty crazy deal. Like in theory, it doesn't make sense, but in application, I've had 10 years to be able to try it, right? And so with that and like getting super clear on the brand, and then core values, culture, mission, vision statements, like we really have it nailed so that when we interact with new customers, it's it's a pretty structural, procedural way. And if it works for the customers, which most everyone it does, it works at a very high level, and they're almost it's out of it's out of the norm for the level of customer service and things like that. If it doesn't work for them because it's too much contact, then they self-select and they don't get scheduled appointment. They don't come in, and that's it. So, we only need 9 to 11 cars a day, and the road that we're on, there are 80,000 cars a day that drive by. So we just need the right ones.
Exactly.
And all of these things help us be able to bring the right cars in, which are really, it's about the people,
definitely
the customers and who are driving those cars. So
they're the ones that pay your bills. So if you can keep the customer happy, that's all that matters. I love how you have adopted to just the modern day, because in my area where I'm in a small town in Ontario, and there's some big excavation and landscaping companies that don't even have a website. So to see that you're actually taking the initiative, getting some actual brand creation, it's totally different than because there's a lot of companies in my area that are still running like the 90s where they don't have a website. They do all their marketing through word of mouth, and that's about it.
I mean, that's the best return on investment, but it's tough if you're in a demographic that has more competition, I guess, right?
Yeah.
It's remarkable how many people don't do a lot of stuff like that.
Yes, definitely.
Even the shops that I run into, I can name a couple that still handwrite their repair orders.
Yeah.
So tracking the KPIs is way more difficult when it's analog. And I mean, certainly I had that experience. I mean, we handwritten our repair orders for many, many years, and it was much bigger view. You'd have to just kind of look at a big aggregate instead of you can't get real narrow on the numbers. Like now with shop management systems, you can look at per hour, per minute production if you really want to get it down that tight.
Yeah. So. No, that's great. So we're gonna move on a little bit and picture. Close to maintain. Okay. Sorry. There was just a notification that popped up, but I just wanted to make sure it wasn't an issue. I'll edit this part out, but no worries.
Sure.
So just to move on from what we were talking about there, I just want you to share a little bit more about your role and how it fits into the bigger picture at Sherwood Auto Repair and what a typical day looks like for you.
Yeah, for sure. Part of this more recent exercise that we've implemented involved I have a director of operations, and I'm a single location shop right now. My goal is to expand and have 5 in the next 5 years is the goal.
That's amazing.
And so building out the director of operations role is in the desire to have Perry is his name create, he'll be the go-to from the locations up to Perry and then up to me. And so each location would have a general manager, and we have it built out that the lead advisor or the lead technician could ultimately share that role just by way of their just running, doing their managing the front or the heart of the house, right? And then if there's a foreman or a general manager, then that would be the organizational structure. And so I've been working on delegation so that I don't have to be a cog, so the industry terminology is work on the business and not in it. And so then, like every day I think about ways to work on the business. And currently, like on the 3rd of March, just a couple weeks ago, I onboarded a new technician. So I did that and went through the test drive route, the digital inspection, how the layouts and the guidelines, what we consider to be it's reference the manufacturer's recommendations, and BG products is another service item that we use. So we kind of blended those two, and then the other part of that is the evaluation of the systems on the car. And so we went through an inspection, and I spent a couple days with her to get her on board. And that was me. And so that part of it could be delegated off, but I have to work on what that looks like because there's a lot of value in the way that I like to have things done is communicated just in the way that I go about doing it without, like you could document it and write it down and somebody else could say it, but I feel that
still little things that get missed.
Right, exactly. So as far as that goes, like that, I did that recently. I'm really not working on any vehicles. I haven't been on the schedule for at least a year. And I think the last time I was on the schedule to actually do some repairs, it was because unexpectedly somebody was out sick with COVID or something like that. Yeah. So I jumped in and did some sold work that was, really low hanging fruit kind of gravy. And and it was easy, it was fun, and I got it done. And so it didn't plug up the schedule. Because if you had to triage everything to make the room, it would have been gnarly for like 3 weeks. So I was able to do that. And, it felt good to be able to do that and be part of the program. If I was not nearby or, maybe a year from now with the way things are progressing, it might just not be a possibility. But if I had a pool of technicians from another shop that could, go over and help out or something like that, then theoretically that would be kind of the next step, right? So
awesome.
we'll see. But that's it now. So I do building out an operations manual with Perry. So I'm writing SOPs. I spent a lot of time writing SOPs, and then as part of my involvement in the institute group, we have financial forecast and composite reporting. So monthly, there's a pretty involved worksheet that you take the numbers from the balance sheet and the P&L and plug them in, and then a financial forecast that you take some of those numbers over, and then you can adjust for. You could add expenses for a piece of equipment or another employee or something like that. So I spent a lot of time thinking about the future and, kind of playing with the numbers to build it out, and to know what it takes down to the minute, to support that, and then what's reasonable to ask of my people to be able to,
That's amazing.
To do the production that supports it. So that's really my role. I was asked as part of the operations manual to write a new job description for myself. I haven't done that yet, but really it's these elements that come into play. Marketing the business, through BNI, working with Perry on the web presence and SEO and AdWords and things like that. We run an ad in a local paper, and we do a monthly insider, like an expert, ask the expert. And so he produces that content for the paper, and we talk about those things and
That's awesome.
kind of big picture stuff. And then I do the recruiting and the hiring as well. So I went to the school at PCC, Portland Community College, for an advisory board meeting the first week of the month, and then last week I had portfolio reviews there. It's the second year students, and they present everything that they've done in the program and stuff that they've done on their own as well. And so it's an opportunity for them to interview, theoretically, before they go out into industry and look for a job. And a lot of them have a job already, and then a lot of them leave there with a lead for a job, because it kind of works out that way. And so I have a lead for a general service tech that's going to come Monday, and do our first real interview.
That's perfect. Doesn't it
Yeah.
help you grow a little bit more?
Me
I
too.
love how you always circle back to the foundations of the company. Like when you're having the issues through COVID and sick, and you didn't try to find someone else. You took it on yourself and
Sure.
and took care of the company. And you're overseeing everything in the company. You're taking care of the company and also helping it grow. So I love how you're focusing on all places in the company. You're not just focusing on growing. You're taking care of the employees. You're taking care of the customers, and it's great. I love how
Thanks.
you're taking care of the business. This one's a tough question. Who was your biggest role model in your entrepreneurial journey?
Wow. Well, for sure, it'd have to be my dad.
Yeah.
Like a good, big part of the foundations are that I learned all from him, and it was some, directly, this is how things are done, and some through osmosis, just from being around him, immersion, osmosis by way of just the unspoken, picked it up through observation, and immersion just from being in the environment forever. And, like the day-to-day stuff, when everything goes right, it's super easy. It's how you deal with it when it goes wrong. And typically, like the car, if a mechanical thing goes wrong, there's a solution. Sometimes it could be a very expensive one, or it might be a super difficult one. But but it's always fixable, and the car doesn't care.
Yeah.
When it goes wrong with the customer and how to navigate that, those lessons are maybe the most valuable, right? And
Definitely.
you can always feel good about it if you do the right thing. And that's that's directly from my dad. That was a lesson that he lived, and I observed over the years many, many times.
That's
So yeah, I mean, certainly my dad, and as I've tried to gather more education and things like that, I'm influenced by, certainly Cecil Bullard from the Institute. I read Michael Gerber, The E-Myth, once a year, and I read Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People once a year. They're very influential. Lots of good tools in those books. I
Lots of role models for you.
yeah. Ultimately,
Love it.
those are influences for sure.
That's great. We all need that one person like your father where you learned so much. You got so much knowledge, especially
Yeah.
from taking over the business. When you were a technician there, you probably watched every single move he did so you could learn how to do it when you get there at some point.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
So I'm going to move into more of the industry trends. So over the past few years, the automotive industry has undergone significant transformations driven by technological advancements, the push for EV, as well as challenges due to shortage of skilled technicians. Being such an experienced individual in the industry, what major shifts are you seeing in the auto repair industry right now, and how is it affecting the company?
Well, I think first, maybe the biggest thing is the workforce. The age of the workforce, and we talked a little bit in the preliminary communications that we had about Gen Z specifically, but really any younger. I'm a Gen Xer. I'm 52, and my dad was a baby boomer, right? So like that's the hierarchy, right? And so I have 2 sons that are 18 and 24. They're millennial Gen, on the threshold of Gen Z, I guess. Millennial.
I think
Millennial.
that'd be Gen.
Yeah.
I don't even know. I don't even know.
Yeah, I don't know either. Anyway.
I think Gen Z is like 97 to 06.
Okay. Okay.
I don't know.
So my oldest boy is would be Gen Z, and younger one's millennial. So I'm exposed to it, right?
Yeah.
However, we have the our thoughts on work are we have a strong work ethic just in general, and so I understand that generally speaking, for the generation that's not the case, and maybe it is the case, but they really the calling or the inspiration is a different source than it was in my era and certainly my dad's, and so the cultural aspects of who we are and leveraging the fact that it is how we walk out every day and live our it's the Sherwood Auto Repair way, to our core values are trust, respect, integrity, building relationships, and service. And so like I read a book, I think, that talked about generational employment, and they talked about how important it was for the younger generations to be inspired or to work for an organization that had a strong sense of purpose. And that was another motivator to move into documenting and really getting clear on those things for us. So that's one thing that I have observed, and being involved in the school and things like that, I certainly have observed that too. my workforce right now are all in their 30s. I have a technician that's been with me 14 years, and he came from the program and has been with me the whole time. And
That's amazing.
he's 37 now, and I think they're all right in there, between 33 and 37. So
Yeah.
so having a strong purpose and like the question is, what do we do here at Sherwood Auto Repair? And like the right answer is not fix cars.
Yeah.
It is, an acceptable answer is we create a worry-free driving experience for our customers. We develop an exceptional customer automotive service experience for our clientele, our customers, for the community. We ensure freedom by able to drive their car, or we ensure that their sense of cool is fortified, because people identify with their cars at a very high level, and a lot of people
Definitely.
buy cars because they're cool. So
Yeah.
so those things, that's the biggest thing. And as far as we're a hybrid shop and we do some light diesel. So as far as the alternative things, we work on some EVs. Mostly the EV stuff is driver interface items, switches and things. People break stuff in their cars, and then steering, suspension, and tires, because they're heavy. My theory on the full EV, regardless of current administrative doctrines and things like that, is that ultimately it will become a part of life to a degree, probably roughly. I mean, my estimate is around 30%, around a third of the vehicles on the road in metropolitan areas. Certainly that'll be the case. Portland is a high adopter of hybrid and electric vehicles, and so early on in the onslaught of Priuses, basically, Portland was the highest per capita market, and San Francisco is number one. So we do see a lot of those cars, and we do see a fair amount of electric stuff on the road. A lot of proprietary warranty and things like that are keeping them out of our shops at this point. But it's
definitely.
I think that sustainability, the raw materials needed to build those cars is a different reality than what marketing things would suggest, and I think it's not the cleanest option if you take it from raw materials to on the road, right?
And
It's
so
definitely
what
not the
happens
cleanest option.
after the battery goes bad? What's going to happen with the batteries? as well?
Sure.
That's another way to look at it.
I mean, there's a lot of factors involved, right?
There's a lot of factors. I think we're going to hear more about it in the next. They kind of made a big push for it just after COVID there,
yeah.
and we haven't really heard much about it in the past year and a half.
Sure.
So I think in a couple more years we might hear a little bit more about the push again, but who knows what's going to actually happen.
Yeah, we'll see. So just, my perspective is to keep your eyes open and pay attention, and try to think in the direction that it looks like it's going. You have to be cautious, because there are certain times throughout history where the IM emissions testing, they come in and they said everybody needs, if you're going to do this testing, you need a mass spectrometer and a dyno in your floor, and I didn't do it. And then 6 months later, we learned that the industry rose to the occasion and made mobile 5 gas, so we didn't need to do it. And so I'm glad I didn't. That was $100,000 that we got to use for other things. And so like that's one lesson that I've learned is when things look like they're going a certain direction, wait just a minute, and usually that pays off, and you're not left behind to where you can't catch up.
Definitely. When you touched on Gen Z and kind of this skilled worker shortage, you said that they need to find a place of work with more of a purpose. I love that saying. I love that you said that because I think it's totally true. I think a lot of that'd be my generation. We get caught up in seeing so many different things because we're online all the time that people can't stick with one thing. But I think if people, especially now, because a lot of the business owners are getting older and they're eventually going to need to get out of it, I think it gives a lot of potential for my generation if they do stick with the trade, so to say, and they'll have great opportunities of taking over a business that has done very well.
For sure. I mean, that's exactly it. I think it's, I mean, that it brings me to like attracting talent. My peers would talk about losing people from the industry to electrician apprenticeships or plumber apprenticeship or something like that, and I mean, it was maybe we were on our heels a little bit, like because we hadn't thought ahead. COVID and post-COVID, they talked about like McDonald's was hiring people for $20 an hour. And a lot of these shops had lube techs that were in there being paid $20 an hour, or $17 an hour at McDonald's or whatever, right? I mean, it was close enough. It was close. And they're working on cars, right, for just a couple bucks more an hour. That was definitely not right. So if they go to an apprenticeship, they talk about paying for school, and they have way less tools than we have. And all these things, and like if they hook up with a contractor that's a union shop or whatever, they'll pay for their tools. And so like I encourage my peers to think about that, to like give a tool allowance and pay them super well. Like it's not the number one thing, but I found that it might be the second thing to have a conversation. And that in reality, if you have a strong purpose and you believe in what you're doing and live it out, then I think the pay might be the fourth or fifth thing, down the line. But to get at the table, it's got to be one or two. It's got to be at the first or second point, because otherwise, like lifestyle and all those things, just. The decision is made at that point, right? Like if we throttled it and said the top is 60,000, right? It's not going to attract the best talent. People who, like, honestly, I would love to have 4-point engineering students be interested in my trade, and they should be paid better than what they would be paid if they went into engineering.
Definitely. I like it.
So Henry Ford said, I don't pay the wages, the customers pay the wages, right?
Exactly.
So you have to develop your value proposition and own it and be worthy of it, but you have to charge what you're worth in order to pay your people and have a good quality of life, and the business should generate a profit for the people who invest their time and blood, sweat, and tears into it. So
definitely, I love that you're looking out for your employees. That's one of the biggest things of being in such a dirty trade. It is,
right.
And some people don't like getting dirty. They don't like blowing their noses all black when you're done at the end of the day. But if you're paying a good amount, and if people are making the money they're wanting and doing the job they love while making the money, they're gonna stick with you, and they're gonna have a great time. So that one last thought on that was, if they go into an electrical or a plumbing apprenticeship here in Oregon for 6 months out of the year, you're working in the mud and using the bathroom in a porta potty. Yeah.
And so we can do way better than that every day.
Yeah.
Heated, beautiful, good lighting, excellent facility, lunchroom, air conditioning in the in
That's
the
exactly what you
shop, in
need.
the office, in lunchroom, right? So, so I mean, like, quality of life. If it was at par money, we get, and quality of life is better, and then any car is infinitely cooler than a section of pipe or cable, in my opinion, right?
Definitely. It's gotta
So,
be. I don't think anyone can say a piece of pipe or piece of wire is cooler than a car.
right? Anyway, so I digress there, but
No, that's so true, especially in Canada. If you're even working construction, plumbing, or electrical, you're freezing for 6 months of the year,
right,
and
exactly.
the other 6 months, you're complaining you're too hot. So
Right.
back and forth.
Yep, that's right.
That leads me into my next question, talking about how good you are to your employees. How do you foster a positive work environment, and what initiatives have been successful in maintaining high employee morale? So you touched on the pay rates, but what more do you offer to your employees?
Generally speaking, the industry is the production end of the industry is, so techs are paid flat rate. That's the
Yeah.
general standard, and like, there are new laws in California, and Canada might be this way too, but technically flat rate is not, doesn't fit into a law really well, so it's technically not legal, and so they
Mm-hmm.
do performance based pay with a bonus or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I pay. The thing about flat rate is it protects the shop.
Mm-hmm.
The marketing on flat rate is that if you're productive, then you can make a lot of money as the tech, because you
Mm-hmm.
can produce a lot of hours. But the reality is that it protects the shop owner. So if the shop owner doesn't do their job and make the phone ring and bring the cars in, and there isn't work, the techs go home and they don't have to pay them. And I
Yeah.
don't think that's right. So I pay my people salary that
Mm-hmm.
is consistent with their abilities and the structured, to their job description. And then there's a production bonus structure in place so that it gives that incentive to rock and roll, to get things done, get them out, and kind of the same aspect that makes flat rate work, the
Yeah.
positive aspect of it. And the goal was to create that, a small amount of competition, in even with just yourself, right? To get after it and see if you can beat book time,
Yeah.
without being toxic, and like, creating a competitive structure between the coworkers. And
Without
so,
cutting corners too throughout the
oh, and
process.
for sure, exactly. So that's the kind of the basis of that, and then, which I think does create a sense of security, and that's
Mm-hmm.
a positive thing for the employees, and certainly that pays dividends to the business. We have an award that we pass around, and it's called the Chief Award. And I had friends when I was young that, if you did something cool on your BMX bike or whatever you were doing, and they were, and like, it would be equal to, that was awesome. Is they would say, "Who's your chief?" And it was like akin to, take me to your leader, right? Or if you come upon I suppose, an Indian warrior out on the plains, and he did something awesome, they want to meet the chief, because if
Yeah.
you're that awesome, then who's your chief, right? And so we have a mascot. His name's Otto, and I have a bobblehead made of Otto, and it
Yeah.
says the Chief Award on it. And so when I handed it out, I gave it to Perry, and I said, a little bit about why I felt like he deserved it,
Yeah.
and the things that he did that stood out and were like an example of how we want to do things. And then he handed it off, and so on. So the first Monday of the month, we hand it off to the next person, and whoever has it has to say, I choose this person for this month because I observed this, this, and this, and I just really appreciate your strong work ethic and how you show integrity, how that thing broke and you took full ownership of it and went up front and said, hey, I broke this, and I just think that you deserve the chief award this month, right? And so we celebrate those things, and then I focus on the positive. So even if it's a slow week or month, I'll share the KPIs that are positive indicators. Everybody knows that it sucked, right? So there's no reason to go there and dwell in that. So I focus on the positive on the Monday morning stand-up meeting, and just say, let's do our best to take the opportunities and create an exceptional customer experience for everyone when they come in, and it orients them to that positive mindset. So
That's amazing.
Really, I think that's pretty much it. It's pretty simple. Just keep it positive and celebrate the wins.
And just look out for the employees.
For sure.
Just take care of them. That's the biggest
Right.
thing. I like that. What do you believe sets Sherwood Auto Repair apart from competitors?
So right away, like the elevator speeches, we offer a 5-year, 75,000-mile warranty.
Awesome.
And our purpose is to create an automotive service environment that is worthy of trust, instills confidence, and ensures worry-free driving. So, really, that's it. We live by that, and that is a huge differentiator. We feel that we really don't have any competition, that even my friends in the industry that are peers that are close by shops, that the philosophy of how they provide the service to their customers and how we do it are unique and different. And so the differentiator is that we have been around a long time, and we plan to be around for a very long time, and that when it comes down to it, we always are motivated to do the right thing and lean into whatever it takes to build the relationship.
That's perfect. That's awesome. So I want to dive a little bit more into the goals of the company.
Sure.
So as you navigate current challenges facing Sherwood Auto Repair, what do you see as the most pressing setbacks and pain points right now? How are you addressing these issues, and what strategies do you believe will be crucial in overcoming them?
So the most pressing or biggest threat probably I don't know. Let me think about that.
All good.
So certainly human resources is that would be maybe the biggest thing, is keeping the funnel full of people who are aligned with our philosophy. For a good culture fit is how we would describe that. Certainly that would be a big part of what we will work on, what we have been working on, what we continue to work on, to, in the name of expansion and growth as well. So that's the biggest challenge. How we go about doing that is, I'm going to just go back to our culture and live it out. do what we say and say what we do, and when we invite people in, prove it, and when the people who are living and breathing the culture do it on their own, then that pretty much solidifies it, and it kind of takes on its own energy. So, and it does happen that way. My people certainly are living it out. So, I mean, that's something that, like, I would like to have an actionable thing that I would say I would do this. And a lot of the time, like I said before, really the best thing would be to start before now to get to where you want to be.
Start yesterday.
Yeah, that's right. So that's a consideration, but you just be worthy of these people who choose to work with you and enter into the industry. I mean, that's maybe the simplest thing.
That's awesome.
Aside from that, like, just making sure people can find you and getting them to come back are really important. And it's, the procurement is a lot more difficult and a lot more expensive than it is to keep your existing and good customers. So, so those elements are things that always should be considered. And when the rules change, figure out what the rules are, I mean, in regards to, like, Google Analytics, right? They change things up, and you gotta kind of be there. So, make an investment in that marketing and advertising, portion of our budget, and then, decide where that's most appropriately placed, how we spend that, invest it, and then measure the return. You have to always measure the return on investment. So, I mean, really, those two factors, the phone has to ring. People have got to find you and bring your car in, and you want to attract 15%, 9 to 15%, I think, new customers to offset attrition and to supplement your growth, is what they say. So, and they say that a rule of thumb should be 5 to 9% of your gross revenue for your ad budget or marketing and advertising, which is a bunch of money.
That is.
I mean, 1 to 2% is kind of maintenance. 3 to 4%, they say, is reasonable, and 5 to 9 is for growth or maybe big growth. But certainly, if you're opening a new location or something like that, you'd be up there at the top of the scale,
Definitely.
at least for a period of time. And so, like, just be smart about your investments and kind of manage everything.
That's great that you can't think of many setbacks or pain points.
Yeah.
Because it just means that you guys are working great as a community and as a company. So it's just nice that everything's rolling the way it should, and that you're really just focused on growing to become a better company, get better ROIs, and just grow as a company, and especially because you want to take on more locations at some point. I think that's a huge goal. And speaking on goals, what are the goals for the next 6 to 12 months?
So I'm looking for opportunity. You mentioned, a lot of the shop owners are getting older, and so I'm kind of in the middle. There are a few younger shop owners, not many younger than me, but a lot of them are 10 or 15 years older than me, and so they're really ready to retire. A lot of them delayed retirement because of COVID, and maybe taking on some money to offset and keep people employed, things like that, which was honorable. That was a good reason to do that.
Yep.
And a lot of them I found don't have a succession plan. They don't have a key employee or a family member that's interested in taking over their business. So they are probably going. The plan would be just to pay themselves until they can draw Social Security and access their hopefully their retirement funds, and then maybe sell the equipment for pennies on the dollar. And if they're lucky enough to own the property, then either rent or lease the property or sell it for, to buy their motorhome and retire and go travel. So I want to be at the table to certainly, if the property's in play, that would be the best. If it's my dream, then that's part of the dream would be that the shop and the property are available. And if they have a good reputation, I plan to preserve their reputation, the name of the business, everything. I don't want to rebrand it. I would maybe define the brand so that we could leverage what that looks like, just like we did for our brand. But I would maintain it if they have a good reputation and their community is around them. They have a strong customer base. Then that would be the move. And really, it would be about preservation more than putting my brand on their thing.
Yeah.
So that that's it. And then what was the question? I'm sorry.
It was. That's all good. It was the goals for the next 6 to 12 months.
Yeah. So okay. So like that's looking for that opportunity, to be introduced and start that process, and then that's always in play, and hopefully start to put some deals together in the next year, so that 3 and 5 years, then there's some movement in that direction. Awesome. Further, finishing the operations manual by mid-year this year, so that we can recreate it. So SOPs and all those things in place and accessible and finished is better than perfect. So at least the first draft is ready. And really just fine tuning the operation in our location right now, which we're very, very close to doing.
That's awesome.
Those are those are the
Exciting
top
news.
of mind, projects right now.
That's perfect. Well, those are some, I love the big goals that you have, and they're definitely very capable.
Sure.
Just need to take. You're taking the steps to get there,
Right.
And
right.
I love the compassion you have to get to the next steps. That's awesome. So, looking back on your journey in the automotive space, what are some of the most important lessons you've learned, and what advice would you give to entrepreneurs entering the auto repair space right now?
Sure.
Sorry.
Sure. Yeah. No problem. Well, when I was 17, I was working on a carburetor at our original Sherwood Auto Repair, and an artist neighbor of ours come walking up the alley, and he said, interrupted me. He said, "Young man, do you understand all that you know about that?" And I answered him, "Yes." And then he just shook his head and walked inside the shop and talked to my dad. Yeah. And I remember distinctly when I was 38 years old, I could hear Stu Olson ask me this question from 17 years before.
Yeah.
And I was like, And I realized that at the time he asked me, I didn't know. And I answered that I did know.
Yeah.
And so, so the reason I bring that up is that the probability of not fully understanding, like in the moment is gonna happen, and that's okay. Like, like if you are sure about who you are and what it means to you to be doing what you're doing, then you can't do it wrong, and just keep moving, and you'll get there. And at some point, this, like you'll remember that moment, and it will all make sense. And it could be 17 years later, or longer, right? Like I'm sure that I have lessons to be shown me yet.
Definitely.
And so, like, that's the fun part of the whole thing, right? Is to just like continually learn and seek and look for new opportunity and find new ways to grow. So that, like honestly, figure out what the business metrics are, and then don't apologize for it. When you price the business metrics, I mean, like Mitch Snyder was a writer in the industry for a long time. He's still around. He wrote for Ratchet and Wrench, and he wrote for Motor Age back in the day, Motor Age, I think. He wrote shop management books. He's a great dude, and he's a friend of mine. And he said, when you work out your financials, pay yourself first. So when you write down the budget, put your wage on there first. And you should, like I would say that you should write down even before that what the business should profit. And so, industry standards best practices is 15 to 20%, or even as high as 30%. But really it's reasonable that the return on investment is 20%, for the risk and the liability, the things that we do. The business should produce a net profit of 20%. So start there. Then what do you want to pay yourself? What's it going to cost to hire people? What are the fixed expenses? What do you got to do? Okay. And then how much do you have to charge to do that? Right. Like if you can do 3 cars a day and your, fixed expenses are 35 grand a month, what do you got? What's it got to do? Right.
Yeah.
And then sell the parts and the labor for what they're worth, and don't apologize for it. If people want to beat you up, tell them that the business model supports profit on parts and labor, and that the price that you quoted is the price that it takes to do the work for them and for you to stand behind it, and then stop talking.
Yeah.
And they'll buy it from you. They'll be like, okay, because they understand that of course your business needs to be profitable. Of course they want to be able to call you if a problem comes up and it needs to be made right.
Yeah. And have the best quality work done as well.
Exactly. Pick the best parts, do the best quality work. I mean, and so you have to it has to be profitable. You could, if people really want to fight you on it, you could say, look, in the United States, I tell people I applied for a 501(c) and they denied me. That's a nonprofit document, by the way. And so I have to be profitable because it's actually against the law for me to not be profitable.
Yeah.
And the customers are like, I've only used that a couple times. And people are like, like either they laugh and they get it and they're good, or they're not happy about it and they go away.
Yeah.
Right. And either both are good. Right. Like if they go away, fine. Right. Because they don't see the value in paying someone to do high quality service or repair to their car, and they never will, and that's okay. They can half do it, and then they can take it to Jiffy Lube and do the other half or whatever. I don't even know what they do, right? But that's not where we dwell, and so I don't invest a lot of time thinking about that.
No, that's great. I don't think you should spend time thinking about your customers' issues. Obviously, if they're a good customer, if they're a bad customer, they can go find somewhere else to complain about. So no, that's great. Thank you so much for coming on the call today. I really appreciate you taking the time to share your insights and experiences. You've had tons of experience in the industry, and you have so much knowledge about even just being an entrepreneur in the industry. And I think the listeners are going to love it. And awesome. I appreciate you coming on. I hope we can chat again soon.
For sure. Yeah, thanks, man.